So we are back, and very briefly, we're going to talk about NATO and the Warsaw Pact. Okay, so the events of the blockade of Berlin are going to sort of inspire some of these European nations to make a much stronger declaration of an alliance. A promise to defend each other, if you will. Since it was becoming, clearer and clearer that the Soviets were not going to be backing down anytime soon, even though they essentially, allowed the United States and Great Britain to come in and come into Berlin. But nevertheless, there's two sort of alliances that we have to discuss here, because now we see the Cold War getting a little bit hotter, even though there's no shooting or actual battles to take place. Remember, it's all ideological, it's political, it's cultural. But regardless, in 1949, after the blockade of Berlin, the U.S. is going to spearhead forming this North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or otherwise known as NATO. Okay, the idea behind it is it's a mutual defense strategy, a mutual defense organization where the countries that are a part of NATO, which are in this map highlighted in the darker shade of blue, are essentially making a promise to defend each other. It's the U.S., it's Canada, it's our Western European allies are all going to be members of NATO. Now, what we wanted the Soviets to know by creating this organization is that, they can't come in here and mess with Belgium or mess with any of these Western countries. It's a recognition that the world is becoming a much more dangerous place. But it's also a declaration that, the countries that are in NATO are democratic or value democratic ideals. They are capitalistic in their economies. And so we're trying to bring those countries in to make that line much more definitive, to set us apart from the Soviets. Now, in response to NATO, of course, the Soviets are going to enforce, I guess, the Warsaw Pact. And so what that is essentially an alliance of communist countries or communist-friendly countries. The idea for them is that, if the U.S. attacks East Germany, then all of these communist European countries are going to jump in and make an issue of it, okay? So, by 1949, like I said, these alliances are becoming much more pronounced. They are either falling in line with democratic ideals, countries that value democratic ideals, capitalist economies, or communist ones. And so if we look at the map, you can see here, it's all of the Soviet Union, it's that block, but then all over the world map, there is, little spots here and there of either socialists, right, that are aligned with the Soviets, or communist friendly. So we're going to end it there for this part. I wanted to just kind of differentiate between the NATO countries and the Warsaw Pact. They are a response to, the situation that happened in Berlin, the idea that neither of these countries are going to be backing down, and the very real possibility that they might be headed for an actual, conflict coming up. And so things are going to get much more complicated by the end of 1949, and that will be the subject of our discussion in the next section.